Welcome back to this
Welcome
morning.
back indeed.
All right, okay.
Time to deal with what's in the newspapers today. I'm sure we can all imagine what the big stories are. But let's greet our guests. Kofi Arkaah is here, and so is Charles Mensah, and they're both in blue. I'm liking the blue. It's a blue Monday.
Chelsea blue.
Oh, it's a Chelsea blue. It's a Chelsea blue. Well, good morning, gentlemen.
Okay.
Good morning.
Thank you
Good morning.
for joining us. Okay. All right. So, what should we talk about with them before we look at the papers?
These are two stalwarts when it comes to issues pertaining to the economy.
To money.
So, Ghanaians wake up every morning to, okay, you've been downgraded, upgraded. The economy is gloomy.
The outlook is negative.
I don't know. We don't understand all these things. But I think there are certain festering problems that people would or would not understand. But I know two of you are quite good at what you do. So you can explain to us some of these things. So first off, let's start. So there's been a downgrading, upgrading. Now we are negative or we are just stable. I don't understand this myself. Kofi, tell us what the situation is. The report that was released last week, if there's any understanding that goes with it.
Well, once again, good morning to both of you and to your audience.
Good morning.
We have achieved, I believe, relative stability.
Okay.
If you remember, back in August 2014, I appeared here on your show, and I talked about an industrialization plan. At this point in time, the government and the authorities were just about to sign the agreement with the IMF. And I pitched a plan which was based upon 5 pillars: energy, labor, education, financial services, and ICT. What has happened then versus now? That's the most important thing to look at. Where were we then? Back in August 2014, we had runaway inflation, a currency in free fall, debt stock at almost 70% of GDP, import cover of 1.7 months. I mean, chronic doomsday. You can go on and on and on and on. What has happened then, at that point, till now? Okay? And what has happened is the government has signed up with the IMF. The IMF has provided a little bit of capital, but it's not that important. What the IMF brought was technical assistance. And what happened with the engagement with the IMF, what it signaled to the market, that the government and the authorities in Ghana were ready to implement the right policies to stabilize the economy and turn it around towards growth. And not just growth, but inclusive, industrialized growth. Okay? So, we were in a period of transition, and we're still in the period of transition. That's why you have Fitch saying that the outlook is negative, and Moody's saying that the outlook is stable, and the IMF saying that the outlook is stable. The Fitch Report was issued, I believe, September 19th. Post-September 19th, a couple of other structural reforms have actually been implemented and signed off. And you've had the IMF release its third tranche. So, let's look at it. I talked about where we were then. What do we have today? Liquidity has improved. $750 million Eurobond has come in. $1.8 million cocoa loan has come in. You have $150 million of the third tranche of the IMF money that's come in. Import cover is now over 3 months. Okay? The threshold, the typical minimum is 3 months. It's now over 3 months. So, doomsday has been marginalized. I mean, I just experienced it 2 days ago, but the first time in probably a couple of months. Okay? Debt stock, it's still at 70% of GDP, but the rate of increase has slowed down. Okay? But the most important things are the structural reforms that have been undertaken. One is the deregulation of fuel prices to the pump. 2 is they have implemented this public financial management law, which I think is very critical. And basically that caps government's borrowing from the central bank at 5% of the previous year's GDP. Previously in the law, it was 10%. Now what this allows the government to do is to go and print money, which can cause inflation. It can. So if you then reduce that threshold from 10% to 5%, it holds them back and caps them from being able to spend as much as they would like to. So those are the two, I think, most critical structural reforms that have occurred. I mean, there's a bunch of others as well.
Right.
For the future, provided that each party follows the IMF agreements, and then we're going to election.
Right.
But provided that everything stays stable, okay? I think regardless of who wins the election, we are in for a period of sustained growth of between 7 to 10% starting next year.
Okay.
Provided, now the IMF agreement ends at the end of 2017.
Okay.
There are a couple of very important structural reforms that should occur next year. And we have to wait and see. But again, the role of the IMF is not to, is to restructure a country's economy and to position it. But it's not to actually fund or finance the growth.
Okay.
So if you notice, they've come in for 3 years, they've stabilized, and at the end of 2017, they're going to go.
Okay.
But at that point in time, we have to be ready to take over the mantle, to keep following those policies.
Okay.
If we don't, then we're going to keep staying in this position.
Well, Charles, from what Kofi is saying, it looks as though he believes that the policies that have been put in place, we are going to benefit from, and we seem to be on the right track, no matter how slow the growth may seem. Do you agree?
Thank you very much. Before I hit whether yes or no, I thought the critical point was the rating. You mentioned up and low. So I'll take the next 1 minute, 2 minutes to explain that. The rating companies, you know, they've been in business for well over 100 years.
Right.
What do? Basically, they look at countries, companies, finances, and then they predict that these guys will be able to pay the loan when you grant them the loan. So basically, you subject yourself to them, and they will analyze, they'll look at the narrative and also the quantitative aspects of your country or of your company. They'll look at the balance sheet of the country and then the policies and the impact of the policies. Ideally, it starts from AA. So if you're likely to pay your debt on time, then you have the AAA or double A's minus. No, and they have there are lots of rating companies, but the three key ones, the Fitch and the Moody's and the S&P, Standard & Poor's, that we all know. Now, in the rating world, they have investment grades and they have speculative grades. When you're in the B zone, that's a speculative grade. Basically, you've taken a loan, there's a bit of risk, and therefore people are speculating that would they pay, and you counterbalance that with policies. So I would agree to some point that Kofi made, that the rating agencies will look at the policies that you've implemented.
Right.
What will be the likely impact of that policy? And if the policy will inure to our benefit, it means that you can pay the loan on time. However, if they doubt the policies, it means that the interest rate, the coupon rate that you pay on the loans would go up. And that's why the last Eurobond that we raised, we pay well over 10%. Previously, it was 8.5%. Ideally, if the policies are solid and they are helping us, then we expect that 8.5 to go to 7%, 6%.
Oh, okay, lower.
Lower.
You shouldn't go high.
And if you are paying a lower one, it means that we're all enjoying. But where you are paying coupon rate very high, it means that the market doubt your capability to pay them on time. It means also that the rating agencies have not graded you properly. So all you have to do is to make sure the policies are solid. Fortunately for us, we have the IMF, you know, helping us to structure our base. Hopefully, all things being equal, we should be able to come out of this IMF thing. IMF, nobody goes to IMF for long. But if it is that it's solid for us, it means that we will pay a much lower rate in the coming years.
Okay.
Yes, we are getting the cocoa bond proceeds in no time. And I've said it time and again that I'm not interested in us exporting beans. I'm interested in us exporting value added. Look, the total cocoa beans that we export will be 2 billion. When it is that we process it even to the secondary, we are likely to move from 2 billion to 20 billion.
Those things are things I find difficult to understand because most of the proponents know all these things. But when people assume political power, all these things don't happen.
That's why I said on your program a couple of months back, I said, look, it's a policy thing.
Yes.
That if you decide that, which I've heard the government mention some of these policies, but it has to be firmed that by 2020, we will not export more than 50% of the beans. The rest has to be processed to secondary. Abidjan is doing it.
Right.
So we have to do it. And therefore, we will begin to attract companies who processes raw beans into powder.
Right.
So we give them the right incentives to attract them to come. Because by 2020, this is what's going to happen.
Okay.
Once you do that, you are adding value.
Yeah.
Of course, we had the energy crisis, which has been fixed in a way.
Yeah.
And therefore, if factories are coming, or companies are coming, meaning that they can process their beans into us. And to such a time that we process our beans, at least half of our beans, we would have this 2 billion. 2 billion is nothing. In the investment, 2 billion is nothing. Because 2 billion, then everybody's happy. And then it goes, no, let's begin to process our beans.
Why is it difficult for political parties, or I don't want to say government, I hear when I say government, it means you and I. But why is it difficult for those at the helm of affairs to implement or come up with such policies?
Is it? Is it difficult for them?
No, you can take it in.
It's difficult because you have to fund it.
So it's the funding.
It's the funding, and the funding bit, you have to bring the private sector in it to fund it. Now, to bring the private sector, you have to attract them. Now, to attract them, you have to give them incentives. Now, to give them the incentives, IMF says, no, you can give too much incentives.
Okay.
So it's a pretty dicey situation because you may have to attract, let's say you, if your company, for instance, can invest $2 billion in our economy, you probably need tax breaks. You probably need the machinery, the import duty on the machinery. You want free one. You need a number of things. You want some expatriates to come in, so you want to have 50 workers coming because they are expertise and all those. Now, the governor of the day is looking at it and saying that, look, ideally I would give it to you, all these incentives. IMF guys look at this, you are giving away these incentives to attract this. No, you can't.
Because you need that
Then the
revenue.
investor says, if you can't give me, I'm not coming. Then government is forced to go and look for money to start so that companies can now come in, or the private sector can now come in and help. So it's a very fun, it's a pure or funding decision. And I want in future, I want, sorry to take your time. My passion is that the fund management, which is the pension fund, the second tier, I want a law to allow them to invest part of these monies into these sectors so that they will not buy T-bills. T-bills is a lazy way of running things. Let them invest in companies like this. Let's have rating agencies to come and evaluate those companies on time, rate them properly, and then we can begin to put our money where it will lead to employment and all those things. That's
Kofi, why are these policies difficult for people to come up with?
Well, the quick answer to that is there's an election coming up in this election. If you implement the right policies which the electorate doesn't like, you're out of office. That's why. So that impacts the decisions of the politicians. I would like to touch upon two subjects. And one is the first thing that Charles talked about, which is the rating. There are really two factors that influence the rating, and both endogenous and exogenous. And what Charles talked about was the endogenous factors, the exogenous, the outside factors as well. That impacted the fact that our interest rate on the last Eurobond went to 10.25 versus 8.75 a couple of years ago when we issued the last Eurobond. So let's just be cognizant of that fact. Second issue is with regard to the structural reforms that should occur next year. And again, if you go back to the industrialization plan that we presented, I think it's our plan. I like to call it our plan. Because we talked about the issuance of a second refinery license, which, if you note, the IMF has that in their program for next year. They're basically waiting for the election and whoever wins to finally, because it's a big decision. But the fact is that once you issue Next year, if we get the issuance of the second refinery license, proceeds from that, that is going to be multi-billion. You'll get the privatization concessionaire on ECG.
Okay.
So there are lots of inflows of money that could possibly come in
Okay.
next year if the policies are followed without the need to borrow.
Right.
We will still borrow, but we shouldn't have to borrow as
that
much
high,
because we've got other capital coming in which will help to finance our expenditures.
Okay.
Okay? And that other capital coming in goes to invest in the necessary sectors and the needy sectors of the economy. So, you issue the second refinery license, you get, let's say, 2 billion. You get this public financial management law.
Right.
The amount of government borrowing is supposed to go to 0% as opposed to 5% of the previous year's GDP.
Right.
Fantastic again. So I think, again, with that you get jobs. The second refinery license creates, so you're going to have growth with jobs, inclusive growth, which is the panacea. This is what everybody is looking for, because previous growth that happened here in Ghana before the last 2 or 3 years, when we had the oil proceeds coming by, etc. We had 8% growth, but it wasn't inclusive. You did not have jobs.
Right.
This is what I think should happen, provided we keep the right policies in place. Now,
Right policies.
now, notwithstanding shocks,
Okay.
what can take the ship off of its course? Shocks.
Can we anticipate those shocks?
What shocks are there likely to be?
All right.
The two typical shocks which really affect Ghana, there are 3. Oil price, commodity prices, oil prices, and I believe the third one is corruption. Okay?
Yes.
Now, oil prices, commodity prices are all fairly low right now. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is actually the best time for Ghana to restructure its economy because it's a pragmatic environment to do so. You don't want to do so when those prices are high and then we're all looking at everything with rose-colored glasses, etc. No, this is the right time.
Right.
All right? So if we keep the right policies, oil prices, commodity prices will likely start going up. Next year they'll go up, maybe the following year they'll go up. But if that shock of corruption raises its ugly head, okay, all of the gains that we've managed to process over this last 2 and then next year to be 3 years stand a risk of all falling away. So that's what we have to guard against.
Okay.
Okay.
Kofi, just a quick one.
Sorry, actually, we'll take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
take the business
we'll
news.
hit the business news
when we
with
come
5G
back,
and then we'll come back.
We'll
All
come
right,
to
okay.
you.
So let's hit the business news, 5G and SPO.
Hello, everyone. It's now time for some business updates. And starting off business, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center has recorded a total of 51 projects valued at $1.45 billion in the second quarter of the year. According to GIPC, the second quarter's performance of foreign direct investment marked a significant improvement over the first quarter results on all parameters.
The minister was addressing colleague petroleum ministers and representatives of state parties during a committee of ministers meeting of the West African Gas Pipeline Authority. Emmanuel Boa, who is also the chairman of the committee of ministers, said he is not enthused with the finance committee's recommendations. He told the gathering that he acknowledged the debt resulted in the failure of the WAPCO to transport expected gas volume to the VRA. The petroleum minister explained that the pipeline damage and repair efforts between 2012 and 2013 forced the Volta River Authority to switch to extremely expensive alternative fuel. This situation, he said, made it tougher for the Volta River Authority to pay its debts and resulted in periodic threats of curtailment of gas supply from NGAS and WAPCO. He told gas suppliers and transporters that they should kindly bear in mind that the debtor must continue to live to pay the debt. Ghana, Nigeria, Togo and Benin signed a treaty on the gas project and established the West African Gas Pipeline Company. The authority has legal and financial autonomy to take actions and decisions in the name and on behalf of the state party.
So the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications has urged phone importers and assembling companies in Ghana to ensure that the reduction on import duties of phones reflects in their prices.
After a lot of agitations from stakeholders, Finance Minister Seth Terkper announced in the 2015 budget that government has reduced tariff on imported handsets from 20 to 10%. This, according to him, was in line with the ECOWAS Common External Tariff, CET. In addition, government also removed value-added tax on imported handsets. However, prices on mobile phones continue to increase. Chief Executive Officer of the Telecoms Chamber, Kofi Arkaah, says the purpose for the reduction was to make phones available to all Ghanaians. According to Kofi Arkaah, it was also to enhance the drive for expansion of technology and financial inclusion through mobile money. He pointed out that with the growth of mobile money, the Bank of Ghana's target of achieving a cashless economic society could be achieved. Presenting some figures from the Bank of Ghana, Kofi Arkaah stated that mobile money transactions from January to June this year hit 30 billion cedis, compared to a total value of mobile money transactions in the whole of 2015, which was at 35 billion cedis.
And Ghana Investment Promotion Center has recorded a total of 51 projects valued at $1.45 billion in the second quarter of the year. According to the GIPC, the second quarter's performance of foreign direct investment marked a significant improvement over the first quarter results on all parameters.
Out of the 51 new projects registered by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, 40 were wholly foreign-owned enterprises, valued collectively at $391.17 million. This represented 78.43% of the total project for the quarter. The remaining 11 projects, which represented 21.57%, were joint venture projects valued collectively at $1.06 billion. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center has in recent times focused attention on local businesses and developed a catalogue to prepare and market them to foreign entities for partnership. The efforts are yielding results, which have resulted in the high joint venture component. The center therefore registered a total of 18 wholly Ghanaian projects in the second quarter, with an estimated value of $392.19 million. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Mauna Treba, says the center has been doing a lot to sensitize local businesses to enhance foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment recorded over the period is valued at $1.41 billion. Foreign direct investment is a controlling ownership in a business enterprise in one country by an entity based in another country.
And that ends the business segment and the news this morning. The morning show continues. Don't go away.
Newspaper Review is proudly brought to you by Ideal Finance.
Have you got an idea? Then all you need is an L.
We've grown apart. It's over between us. I found a new partner. He is the ideal person who will do anything to make sure I succeed. He treats me like I am his core business. With him, the word no doesn't exist. He believes that I can be anything that I want to be. Thanks to him, I have opened a second shop and a third is on the way. I'm sorry, but I have to do this for me because with Ideal Finance, I have the perfect partner, yours ex-customer.
Just where you need it,
Put Ideal to the test today and see your business grow. Call 0302-543-438 or visit www.idealfinanceghana.com. Ideal Finance, a loan just when you need it.
Ideal's your ideal.
All right, welcome back. We are still here with Kofi Arkaah and Charles Mensah.
Yeah.
I'll go through the front pages very quickly, and then we'll take Uncle Charles's comments on what we were discussing before the business news. So, the Finder front page, NPP, new economic direction, shift from taxation to production. Okay, that's the big headline on the front page of the Finder. I'm sure many of the headlines will focus on the NPP's manifesto launch, which took place yesterday.
Didn't focus on Nane's spectacles.
Oh,
Charlie, is it a blue? He said, what blue day? Charlie, Nana,
you know the rims. Okay. We'll restore hope, Akufo-Addo promises as he launches manifesto. There he is again on the front page of the Daily Graphic. The Insight, unqualified pharmacists, a case of disaster and threat to life. Unqualified pharmacists, that is dangerous, isn't it? How do you know they're prescribing you the right drugs? Okay, The Chronicle, NPP to reduce electricity bills and provide immediate relief to households and industries. I know why you're laughing, Patrice, but that's the front page of The Chronicle. Political promises. Okay, The Daily Dispatch, APC, your party, APC and NPP, who stole whose manifesto? I love this back and forth, man. Between Hassan Ayariga and the NPP. Okay, Daily Guide, NPP mega show. It's David versus Goliath. Yeah, we all heard that reference yesterday. And that's the Daily Guide. The Ghanaian Times, manifesto is a social contract, says Akufo-Addo, as policy is outlawed. Students exchange fire at Legon matriculation. Dear me, goodness. All right. And then as Madam Charlotte was saying no security agency can help a party to win the elections. Okay, Graphic Sports, finally, Stars storm Durban for a friendly with Bafana. That's cool. And our Black Maidens have set up a clash with North Korea in the Under-17 Women's World Cup quarterfinals. Good for them. They're doing quite well. They are actually making us smile right now, and I hope they continue.
Little or no funding.
You know, little or no funding, Charlie. Anyway, okay, those are the front page headlines very quickly.
And when you're done, there's one in the page 16 of the Daily Graphic. Yeah. IMF hopeful Ghana will return to economic prosperity. When Uncle Charles is done, you can just
it goes in line with what we're talking about.
Let's see what
happens.
Okay,
sorry, you wanted to make a comment before.
We're just going to contribute to what Kofi was alluding to earlier on. Once the proceeds from the issuance of the second refinery license comes through, I mean, his application was saying that money will come in, but it is the application of the money. If it is that the money comes in and we will apply it to agro-processing, manufacturing, then we can see an impact. But when it is that we are using it to reduce our debt, we can have yes, you reduce your debt, you save interest payment immediately. But when you put it into agro-processing or manufacturing, what then happens is that you would get employment created, you would get VAT on the output, you would get a multiplier effect in the economy because PAYE will come in, the people will get money and they take care of their families. So rather, I always think that we should be looking at ventures that can take the lot of the people. And agro-processing is the finest because we have the land, we have
the produce.
Look, this is a country where if you plant even corn in your backyard,
it will grow
without fertilizer.
Okay,
it will grow.
So let me put the two of you on the floor. So if you have fine brains like you and Kofi and so many other people that I believe you engage, how come we still find ourselves in this quagmire? How come people in authority don't think like that?
If I may, I think there's a critical segment of the population that needs to be mobilized. And when I talk about that, I talk about the private sector and the mobilization of private sector financing.
Right.
This is the challenge for Ghana, and it's a challenge for most economies in transition from lower income to lower middle income to middle income. Now, last time I was here in August, I talked about one regulation or law that the Bank of Ghana could implement, which will then turn around the capital which the government is sucking out of the banking sector and crowding out the private sector, and then turning that capital around to focus on the private sector. There are two initiatives I want to talk about. That's one. And let me expand on it a little bit more. Right now, it's very easy to go and buy T-bills. And a lot of these banks, instead of taking private sector risk, they go and buy T-bills.
Right.
And you just sit pretty and you make your return. One of the structural reforms that the IMF is implementing is strengthening the independence and the efficacy of monetary and fiscal policy. On the monetary policy side, they're bringing in an independent director onto the board of Ghana, etc. So they're trying to make, the Bank of Ghana stronger and more independent so it can start making these decisions.
Okay.
If they make this decision and they cap the amount of government debt that the banks can hold on their balance sheets, the banks have this capital. They now need to turn it towards the private sector. So that's one initiative that needs to occur. What percentage? I don't know.
Okay.
You know, the actuaries that are there, the brilliant people of the Bank of Ghana, they can go ahead and do all the calculation. That's one. Second is mobile money. And the intermediation effect and role that mobile money has to play. The fact is, 70% or about 2/3 of our economy is in the informal sector.
Exactly.
A third is in the formal sector. Now, a lot of this informal sector money is being captured by mobile money.
Yeah.
Previously, in sort of mobile telephony, it was captured by prepaid. Remember when prepaid first came in?
Yes.
Exactly. Now, mobile money has come in. It has a tremendous role to play.
Right.
And we, as a population and the authorities, need to think. It's innovation time. Technology is happening. And innovation around technology and around mobile money is happening fastest in Africa.
Right.
This is where I think there's a big role into, because imagine all this money is coming in. What happens? Me as a subscriber, I go get my money. I go to a mobile money vendor, I load it into my account. What happens? The mobile money company has that money, goes and puts it into his bank account. But me, with a subscriber, I have the money right there.
Okay.
I can now play a role as an intermediary, as a bank. I think we need to really think about that, and that's where I think a lot of financing for the private sector can occur into the future.
This is very instrumental, and I'm saying so because you were not at a summit that I attended at La Palm, and Dr. Chris Kirubi from Kenya, one of the richest men in Kenya, was there, and he made exactly this point that Ghanaians should take advantage of the mobile money platform. He said that it is one of the best things and policies that we can implement to ensure that we go out there.
Patrice, I beg you, let's not miss the point. Mobile money is just a form of payment. And it helps with convenience because it saves cost. When it is that you are transferring money to somebody, probably the bank will charge you something. If you do mobile money, it will be cheaper. It doesn't change the money bit, because after all, the agent who collects the money from you and you is transferred automatically onto your phone, that agent physically takes the money to the bank.
Okay.
So the traditional rule will still be there. What the mobile money does is that it allows a convenience flow of things.
But
does it mean that a lot more money will be taken from the informal sector? Like I said, the vendor will take that money from the informal sector to the bank, which ordinarily wouldn't happen.
So it's not new money. It's not new money.
It's just finding its way to the bank.
It's not new money. It's just convenient. So you have 1,000 Ghana cedis in your pocket. It's transferred onto
the mobile money.
Mobile money. So it allows me to pay money to Kofi. And then Kofi has a device that can accept that. And it allows Kofi also to pay somebody.
Right.
So it's just a payment system that is being floated around.
Okay, but initially, I would do that because, like with the banking system, I would do that. But with the mobile money, now everybody else down the line would feel like, oh, I can put money on my mobile money platform. So that means the bank also, the mobile vendor has to also save some money in the bank.
Yeah, but the point is that it's just that it's a device that has kept your money. What can propel us is when in future we introduce credit system, where credit system you don't have fiscal money. You just because you are credit worthy, because they know that you will pay. So they allow you to take the goods on credit. So that one you see growth. This one is debit. Your money is there, and just the device is holding the money that you have. Without your money, you won't have any payment on the phone. So we need to look at it critically.
Right.
Now, last night they were giving statistics and saying that it is growing, it is growing. It's just the money that formerly was being transacted around the market women. Now they have a device that is keeping an account of that. So maybe for accountability purposes, we know this is happening. Maybe for the banks themselves, they are getting some bank charges here and there. So maybe we can throw in some VAT on financial services there, so we can capture something. That is where, when you talk to me about it, they now buy into it fully. But really, I've done a bit of studies. I've been involved in helping some of these telcos. But really, it's a payment system. It's a payment system. It's not new money. It's just a payment system, and it's convenience. Because your mom calls you in the village, and then you arrange, and you automatically gets an alert. He goes to the nearest point
and takes the money.
He takes the money. So it's just some money circulating, but it's not new money. It's not really new money.
Okay.
May I differ slightly?
Okay.
It's not new money, but it's money that wasn't previously in the formal sector. And that's the critical point.
Right.
It was in the informal sector being transacted in cash between people, and not in the banking sector and not in the formal sector, which its intermediation role could be greater. Okay? So if it's just like this versus all goes into the bank and it's all accumulated into a big pool of capital, it can play a greater role. So that's the big difference. Okay? That's one. The second point I was trying to make, and it's not something, it's something which I'm saying is going to come, and it's going to come into the future. And maybe it's in the near future, maybe it's in the medium term. But mobile money in Africa, I tend to disagree with Charles here. I think it's basically leapfrogging the credit system. Okay? Really? Credit cards, yes, I think credit cards and debit cards, the uptake in Africa would not be as great as the developed world. And as a technology, mobile money is going to leapfrog it. And you will find that, look at Kenya, where there's been a great uptake. It's 90% of the population is on mobile money. So all of these cashless transactions, which in Europe and other parts of the developed world will be done with debit cards or credit cards, is now being done on mobile money.
Phone. Okay.
Okay, so we've leapfrogged that. We've leapfrogged it. I mean, Charles, if I may,
mobile phone, and they're using it to pay. So it's the same thing.
No, if I may, I did not interrupt you, so if I may, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
No problem at all. So those, I think, are the two primary issues regarding mobile money, and the two primary issues regarding the mobilization of private capital that needs to occur over the next few years. Now, yesterday, yourself and your producer came to me and said, we would like you to talk about the state of the economy, given what Fitch said, and how it impacts both entrepreneurs and businesses.
Right.
I think in the medium term, and that's why in the medium term, to me, medium term is 3 years. We have growth, and we have inclusive growth. So, and we're lucky in that we've had relative stability, and if the policies are maintained, the relative stability should stay. Exchange rate has, I mean, it's basically stable. So that gives the everyday person and the businessman making a long-term investment decision the right environment to be able to make their investment decisions.
Right.
You know, so I think it's an exciting time for Ghana, not because it's also an election time, so that brings up its interesting times when you hear the various policies being pushed forward by both parties. But I think we've come to the point where, you know, a critical decision is going to be made in December. But if we follow the right policies, Ghana is right.
Okay. How I wish I could leave this mobile money thing, but I'm just getting a little drift in terms of what Charles was saying. That so it's money that is already existing, just that we're just transferring it onto a portable device. That's all.
Correct.
Goes into the form.
Let me take it a bit further. He talks his finance mobile phone companies. I finance mobile phone companies throughout the world. I was the account officer responsible for financing Celtel. I financed Grameen Phone in Bangladesh. I financed MTN. I financed Digicel in the Caribbean. I know the mobile telephony business inside out. Okay? What happens with prepaid? Let me give you a classic. Prepaid. The money comes, it goes into the phone company's accounts. The phone company has an account at the bank.
Right.
who has access to that money? Only the phone company. And the bank to be able to use it for its other loans or whatever.
Yeah.
With mobile money, who has access to the money? The consumer. The subscriber has direct access to the money and can make their investment decisions right there and then. That's why I'm saying there's an intermediation role that we need to clearly think about and a greater role that mobile money can play.
Okay.
All right, okay.
We could deal with this another
Charles,
time.
briefly.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
Before we wrap up.
Final words.
Final words. I mean,
policy.
I know.
I think we have to bring you back next time.
I think so too,
assess
yes.
the economic policies of the two political parties, NDC and MPP.
But they're supposed to be sticking to what the IMF has laid out.
There's no PNC.
You know, APC. APC.
We don't deal with 0.00 something.
Look,
we deal with 50%.
I would love to do that. I mean, basically, the premise of our discussion that they possibly would be to look at the National Development Planning Commission. I think they've done something which they visited most of the political parties, took their views, and some documents have been done. If it is that all the parties have launched their manifesto, it's too late now. But if we can do a linkage, or if we can pass a law to say that all the political parties' manifesto must have a link to the National Development Plan, it would help all of us.
It should.
I think
Thank you so much, Kofi. Thank you so much.
Because listening to all the political parties, everybody, somebody says, I'm going to reduce VAT. I'll take VAT off the banking, I'll take this. This person says, I'll take tax, I'll reduce this. Now I hear John Mahama, His Excellency, said that they were going to do what? Restore the allowances they took from the teachers, or it's just getting murky. When it's getting to elections, all these things come up. Look, thank you so much, Kofi. Thank you so much, Charles, for coming on the show. We'll be right back. We're getting into office romance. Those of you who find the opposite sex attractive in your offices and want to go out with them. Some companies, organizations have policies against it. Some say you can go ahead and do it. I know Data Bank says go ahead and do it. At UT Bank, never. We'll be right back to discuss that one, if it's good for your health or not.